The question is that this bill be now read a second time, and I call the honourable member for Canberra.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I rise to speak in support of this important bill today as a proud member of the first ever majority woman Australian government. An Albanese Labor government that an Albanese Labor government that has a record number of women in cabinet and ministry. I want to thank my ACT colleague and friend, the Minister for Women, Senator Katie Gallagher, for her work in bringing this bill before the Parliament. And I recently had the pleasure of hosting a Canberra Women's Forum with Senator Gallagher and ACT Deputy Chief Minister Yvette Berry in the lead-up to International Women's Day. It was an inspiring evening full of many great questions and discussion about issues affecting women across Australia, because we still have a long way to go to progress gender equality in this country. Luckily, under Senator Gallagher, Labor has put gender equality at the heart of policy making in this government. A Labor government that doesn't just make announcements but follows through on our promises. A government that has worked hard to deliver for women since the election 10 months ago. A government investing over $7 billion to drive gender equality in our first budget. A government that has a national strategy to achieve gender equality. A government which will make gender equality an object of the Fair Work Act. That is delivering 10 days paid domestic violence leave, enhancing the paid parental leave scheme, and delivering cheaper childcare for 1.2 million Australian families and more. And a government that has introduced legislation for the Housing Australia Future Fund, which includes a focus on older women and women escaping domestic violence. And this bill is, currently before this Parliament, and I think it's disappointing that anyone in this Parliament would want to vote against or be considering voting against the delivery of affordable housing for those most in need of it at the moment. So we are making a lot of progress, but of course there's still more to do. And that's why we've brought this bill, the Workplace Gender Equality Amendment, Closing the Gender Pay Gap, which fulfils a key election commitment of this government to close the gender pay gap at work. Unfortunately, improvement in the gender pay gap has been stalling. In fact, in the previous financial year, under the last government, the gap actually increased by 0.3%. In 2023, Australia's national gender pay gap sits at 13.3%. In practical terms, as of May 2022, the average weekly full-time earnings of a woman in Australia across all industries and occupations was lower than the equivalent for men by $253.50 per week. It's not good enough. Women should not be paid less than men, and we must close this gap. The impact of this means that the average woman will pay a higher percentage of her earnings on bills than men, including essentials such as groceries, power bills and rent. And it follows women into retirement, where they will have an average 23.4% less super when they come to retirement age than men. Not only is this morally unacceptable, but it is a constraint on the Australian economy. The gender pay gap alone represents a cost of $51.8 billion a year. The gap is present in all industries, from the top end of town to the suburbs. In 2022, only 14 women are chief executives in the top 200 companies in this country. And I was pleased today to see the 2021 National Community Attitudes Towards Violence Against Women survey, which is conducted every 4 years, showed some improvement, with attitudes rejecting gender inequality increased by 5%. It was disappointing to see the survey report that almost 1 in 10 of those surveyed still believe that men make more capable bosses than women in the workplace, and 1 in 10 agree with the statement that men make better political leaders than women. This has to change. Now, we know that the gender pay gap is especially prevalent in highly feminised industries, which can be attributed to outdated and discriminatory assumptions about the value of the work that we do. But the pandemic showed us, brought home to us just how important the care industries really are. The heroes of the pandemic, such as early childhood educators, nurses, aged care workers, cleaners and disability support workers who look after our young, ageing and Australians living with disability. I recently had the pleasure of meeting a number of these invaluable workers when I visited Baptist Care Carey Gardens Aged Care home in Red Hill with our Aged Care Minister Annika Wells. And I also recently visited Good Start Early Learning in Garran and met some incredible and professional workers at both of those. And I'd like to thank the staff at both of these centres for your dedication and sharing with me the challenges you face and positive plans for the future. The highlight was meeting the happy residents and the children, which was a testament to the hard work of staff in both these important sectors. I'm proud to be part of a government that is working to fix aged care and supported a pay rise for aged care workers and is increasing access to early childhood education. I'd also like to take the opportunity to mention a fantastic organisation in my electorate, which I am very honoured to be the patron of, which is WIC, or Women in ICT, Information and Communication Technology. WIC is dedicated to championing women in tech through opportunities for networking, inspiring women to take their careers to the next level in the industry and supporting them to do so, and increasing participation of women in this male-dominated industry. I want to acknowledge the current President, Tara Searle, and Vice President Josephine Calabria and the whole committee for the incredible work they do, and all the people that participate in WIC events. And whenever I've had the pleasure to go to their events, I'm really struck by the genuine warmth and a great spirit there of people who want to support women in this industry and men that come along as well, because that is a really important part of this. WIC supports women in tech right from the beginning of girls studying STEM in high school and helping to provide them with an opportunity to talk about some of the things that they're facing and considering furthering their education in this area, including in providing scholarships for women who go to uni to study in these areas. And it's just really important and so inspiring, in particular to see these young women studying in areas that didn't even exist when I was in high school, but taking this on, and that they have such a supportive, inclusive, wonderful group of women in this area. And I just really commend their work and wish them all the best in continuing. And again, so honoured to be their patron and hope to support what they're doing in every way that I can. This bill, like so much of the legislation the Albanese Labor government has passed to make Australia a better and fairer place, is being guided by evidence. We are a science and evidence-based government, unlike the previous government. These reforms result from close consultation with stakeholders across Australia, including the business and not-for-profit sectors, employee organisations, higher education providers, users of the Workplace Gender Equality Agency data, Australian government and state territory governments, and of course WGEA itself. This bill also responds to a 2021 review of the Workplace Gender Equality Act 2012. The review made 10 recommendations to help accelerate progress towards workplace gender equality in Australia. Recommendation 2 of the review was to improve pay gap transparency. And this bill introduces new provisions allowing for the WGEA to publish gender pay gaps of relevant employers for each reporting period. This will promote accountability and encourage accelerated action and change within organisations towards closing the gender pay gap. Recommendation 3.2b went to improving accountability for gender equality within organisations. For the first time, the WGEA will report gender pay gaps at employer level, not just industry level, and this will help encourage companies to prioritise gender equality and work to close the gender pay gap. It will accelerate progress towards gender equality. This is what happened when the UK introduced similar legislation in 2017. This change draws on data that employers already provide to WGEA and will give us more information about gender pay gaps and put employers on notice to take action. To strengthen the focus on gender equality, the bill will amend the Act to rename current minimum standards as gender equality standards, to reflect the increased ambitions of these measures to strengthen gender equality, improving outcomes for both women and men in the workplace, and to support the implementation of the Respect at Work report. This bill also amends the Act to include sexual harassment, harassment on the ground of sex, or discrimination as gender equality indicators in the Act. These reforms will drive employer action, transparency and accountability, and will help speed up progress towards gender equality in the workplace, while at the same time streamlining reporting for employers. Estimates indicate that, at the current rate of progress, it could take as long as 24 years to close the gender pay gap. Women have waited long enough. Improving workplace gender equality is critical. Australian women deserve fair and safe working conditions, and they deserve equal opportunity and equal remuneration. This bill is getting on with the job of closing the gender pay gap for women in Australia. Labor has also committed to reviewing these legislative amendments 5 years after they have passed, and this will allow critical evaluation on how effective these measures have been in achieving the objective of accelerating progress towards gender equality in Australian workplaces. It's my firm belief that to truly achieve gender equality in the workplace, we do, as the Member for Sydney and Minister for the Environment just said, we do need to ensure that unpaid work is also equitably shared between genders. And I think really to achieve gender equity in the workplace, we really need to see a normalising of taking time out of the workplace or to be part-time for both men and women in respect of taking care of children, because that is really where the rubber hits the road in terms of the disparities between men and women in the workplace. And I'm really proud of the work that we have done on paid parental leave under the Minister for Social Services and her leadership on that we are actually extending the paid parental leave scheme and making it more equally shared between both partners, because seeing this normalisation and seeing is important not only for people accessing that scheme, but it also sends a broader message to employers about providing this leave for both mothers and fathers and partners after the birth of a child. And we know that when parents are able to take more of that time at that really special time for families, that it actually means that, particularly when fathers are able to take that time, that it means that they will take more time and more involvement as the children grow up as well. And I think this is critically important because, honestly, we still live in a society where predominantly the responsibility of this is taken on by women. But this means that men miss out as well. And I think in the days where it was just seen that, the dad will work and the mum will be with the kids, the dads really missed out as well on a really special time in their children's lives. So it's good to see some movement in this area, and I think government policy is a really important part of supporting people, supporting families to make the choices that suit them the best, and also sending that broader message to employers. I remember when I was working at Treasury some years ago, we undertook a process of progressing women. And in the time that would happen, we saw some real results around that. And one of the things that I remember having the most impact was seeing some of the men, particularly senior men, going part-time. And this was sort of groundbreaking at the time, the idea that a senior person could be part-time, let alone a man. And then to see the impact that this had for others, and to see that people could do this, was a really important step. And as I say, government policy of normalising that time out of the workforce to balance family and work is so important. So I just want to say I'm so proud of the work that we've done there and commend the Minister on that as well. Just quickly too, it's a great honour to follow the Minister for the Environment, talking about being a majority woman government for the first time. Obviously, it is wonderful to work with so many great women in this Labor caucus, and I'm very thankful for that opportunity, and just particularly want to acknowledge the Minister for coming to my Canberra Environment Forum last night, which meant so much to my constituents, and it was a fantastic discussion. Thank you.